when you look at the aggression against the Bosniak Muslims, it was rooted in Islamophobia. It was rooted in ethno-nationalism, in this sort of greater Serbia expansionism. We have the Serbian directive, or the Republika Srpska directive, that was that literally specified that Eastern Bosnia and other parts were to be completely cleansed of Muslims. So yes, this was very much tied with Islamophobia. Even now, 25 years after the genocide, the way it's discussed, the way it's justified is that we are terrorists, we deserved it, we were, I think particularly after the events of 9/11, as Islamophobia in general sort of took over due to the fear that was being sort of spread by world leaders, we've seen a huge uptick in the justification of the Bosnian genocide, sort of basically saying, yes, well, even if we did commit it, we did it because they deserved it, because they're Islamic terrorists. What matters is that we are Muslims, and whether we're super progressive or super orthodox in our faith, we're still going to be hated for the fact that we're Muslims. So for me, it's always been this sort of realization that those people who hate us and who sort of buy into that Islamophobic propaganda, there is nothing that we can do as people to really change their minds. I know other people disagree with that, but that sort of fear-mongering and hatred that's been sort of developing since 9/11 has really grown to an extent that there's nothing we can do. There's, we can't justify our existence to these people. We can't convince them that we're human, because in their eyes, we're not. So while there was a lot of talk about what should be done to help Bosnia, there wasn't very much action. So the people were basically left to sort of deal with it on their own. Despite the fact that the international community at large had started gathering evidence even as early as 1992. So way before the events of Srebrenica, what happened was, they had the evidence that, massacres were taking place all over Bosnia, that people were being expelled, villages were being burned, there were concentration camps. For example, by August of 1992, we had journalists from ITN and Channel 4 and Ed Wuljami from The Guardian who uncovered those concentration camps. So it wasn't as if the world didn't know what was happening. There was very much knowledge of it. However, they didn't choose to do much. So when we look at this sort of evidence and we take a look back, we can almost see that with their inaction and with their attitudes, they were very much ready for the Bosnian Muslims to be massacred. They let it happen because, as I said, in their words, Bosnia did not belong. A Muslim majority country in Europe was just foreign, and they didn't want to really have it happen in a Christian Europe, basically. And the UN had this responsibility to protect the people, but they didn't. People can debate on this, and of course, some people view it as a sort of gross incompetence of the UN. Some people view it as, the international community just did not care enough to fully protect the Bosnian community, the Bosnian Muslim community, so they decided to just sort of bluff their way by sending a small amount of UN soldiers for peacekeeping. And so there is that argument, which is, I believe, a sort of valid argument. But then there is also the argument of the fact that they just weren't ever really there to protect the Bosniak Muslims. We now know that when Ratko Mladic entered Srebrenica in July, the UN generals drank with him. They took shots together. They were warmly welcomed. They basically warmly welcomed the Serbian soldiers, despite the fact that for years now they had heard of the atrocities. They had known of the atrocities that were occurring to the Bosniak people, the Bosniak Muslim people, and they decided that they would save their own skins They failed to act, they failed to protect. They allowed the Serbian forces to enter Srebrenica, which was in the best way to sort of explain it. It was an open concentration camp. It was a ghetto of refugees, of survivors, of a huge amount of people who had nothing. No food, no medicine, nothing. And you know, even for me, from speaking to survivors who have actually testified at The Hague, when they talk about those days in July, those early days right before the executions, when they were hearing the rumors that the Serbian forces were closing in, they were getting closer, a lot of them actually went directly to the UN building to seek safety in there, to actually hide, you know, behind the soldiers, and they were returned. You had huge amounts of refugees from surrounding areas come to Srebrenica because that was the safe zone, and they were told that they would be protected, that they would be safe. And so you have, you know, hundreds of villages around the area who being looted, burnt down, people being massacred, killed, women being raped. And for those who were surviving that, you know, they had no choice but to go to the UN safe zone. And the UN had this responsibility to protect the people, but they didn't. We talk about the numbers. You know, we say, you know, 6 million in the Holocaust. We say, you know, 100,000 in Bosnia. What people have to remember is that these are not just numbers. These are real human beings. They were mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, daughters, sons. And, you know, they had hopes, they had dreams, they had feelings, and they could have done so much, and their lives were taken before their time because of hatred, because of Islamophobia, because of ethno-nationalism. And we sort of see this ongoing rise of fascism currently, and we have to act. We have to stand together. We have to speak out against it. We have to do everything that we can to basically really turn never. I hate the statement "never again" because I've learned that it's an empty platitude. But what I want people to know is that we can get to that point. We're not there yet. We're not learning the lessons of the Holocaust. We're not learning the lessons of the Bosnian genocide because we see what's currently happening all throughout the world, you know, and we're not doing much to stop it. We're not doing much to educate people on it, but we can get to that point.